Dauntless is a game about teaming up with your friends, hunting giant monsters, and bringing them down. It's a 4-player cooperative action game that pits your team of slayers against massive monsters with battles that are reminiscent of MMO raid bosses.
Though we don't know much about it, the Dauntless story goes something like this. Mankind is recovering from a massive cataclysm that broke up the world, creating these floating islands that are held up by a magical energy called Aether.
Coincidentally, giant monsters called behemoths are drawn to the Aether. They feed on it, siphoning it out, until eventually the island can't hold itself up and falls, causing catastrophe below. To combat that, you take on the role of a slayer, who's called to hunt down these behemoths with up to 3 others.
And that's exactly what we did when we got our hands on a Dauntless combat demo. As slayers, we had access to 4 weapons: an axe, 2 different kinds of swords, and a shotgun fused with a hammer. As you'd expect, the swords allowed for faster attacks while the other large weapons moved slower. The few weapons we had didn't feel like they allowed for much strategy, especially since the Shrike Sword and its one ability made defeating even hard behemoths easy. But there's still a lot of time for developer Phoenix Labs to do some balance tweaking.
And what Phoenix Labs has here is an impressive base to build on. The behemoths themselves are creatively designed, both menacing and strangely adorable. Behemoths come loaded with an impressive AI that allows them to read the situation and change tactics. For example, one of the 2 behemoths we fought, a part owl, part bear monster called the Shrike, whipped energy at us from range and dashed at us individually. But when we grouped up, it took to the sky and came crashing down on us all.
I kind of fell in love with the Shrike, but when the behemoths go into their rage mode, things got a little scary. The second of the 2 behemoths we fought, the Pangar, was especially difficult to take down once we traded in our swords for the heavy weapons. Each of these beasts' attacks get supercharged and extra lethal when they're angry. Keeping an eye on the environment was also important in battle. At one point we accidentally let the Pangar trap us in its ice shards. It was impressive to see how the behemoth's AI utilized the environment.
But I thought the coolest part of that fight was the fact that you could see how close Pangar was to shifting into his elemental enraged mode by the ice scales on his back. They acted like a visual indicator, and hitting them to break the ice off slowed the transformation. It's a really smart design system that keeps all the information on screen without having a bunch of combat text and warnings float all over the place.
The highlight of our demo was definitely the behemoths. It would have been helpful to have a little more indication as to how much damage it took to take down the beasts. We'd see scrapes and gashes appear on the monsters over time, so maybe having those be more defined would be helpful.
Well, as this was only a combat demo, the majority of the game we haven't seen. Things like the hefty crafting system that requires you to collect resources through the worlds to combine with monster bits for your gear and upgrades.
Phoenix Labs said they intend on filling the islands with other small enemies and collectibles that reveal information about the story. Those collectibles can also reveal information about special behemoth locations.
They also told us they're building a community hub where players can chat with each other, craft, and upgrade their slayers, similar to city hubs in Destiny. And those floating islands, and the behemoth fights on them, are expected to orbit in and out of reach of the city hub, meaning there will be timed windows for you to complete these fights only while they're in range. There's still a long way to go before all the blank spaces are filled in, but for more on Dauntless as it becomes available,
keep it right here on IGN.